Hello, I'm Tom Landers. Today is 7 April 2016. I'm here with Matthew Kenney, a student veteran here at Salem State who served in the Army with deployments to Afghanistan. Thanks for coming today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, since you're from Westford, what was it like growing up there?
I actually grew up in Lowell. I graduated from Westford Academy in Westford. Had to transfer schools my senior year, but growing up in Lowell was a little rough. We weren't very economically well off, so it was fun, but there's a lot of like craziness growing up as well, just local hooliganism and whatnot.
So, what made you decide to join?
It was a combination of a few things. First and foremost was just tradition for my family. All the males, if not serving, have at least made an effort to serve. We've had a couple turned away, but starting with my grandfathers on down, we've all at least made the effort to join the military, and all but one was Army, one was Navy, but we don't hold it against them.
Black sheep.
Yeah.
So were they infantry also, or was that kind of your own decision?
My brother and I were both infantry. One of my grandfathers was, and then the other was Navy.
Okay, so it was kind of just assumed you'd go infantry, or did you intend?
My brother and I talked about it growing up, and we both were just dead set on infantry. No matter how well our ASVABs went or anything like that, we were just dead set on it. Like, we both scored very high on the ASVAB, high GTs, and didn't matter. We were going infantry. My recruiter was upset with me because I wouldn't listen to anything else. I was like, I'm going infantry. So
I saw the dates you joined is 2005, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of right on that beginning of the surge. Was there anything? Did you think you were going to Iraq or Afghanistan? Was there anything specific you were hoping for, duty station wise?
To start out with, I actually had a guaranteed duty station,
okay.
Which would have been Fort Bragg in the 82nd, which my older brother, that's what he was a part of. Okay. He was in 504th down there, the Devils in Baggy Pants. But I ended up, I was pretty certain I'd be going overseas. The day I shipped out to basic training, actually, he ended up flying into Boston on his mid-tour leave from Afghanistan. Okay. So we actually crossed paths at the airport and like gave each other a hug, wished each other luck, and then I went to basic and he was going home to hang out with family. But I ended up injured in airborne school. Okay. Right after basic, and ended up on a needs of the Army thing. So didn't end up getting to Bragg, but I feel like I upgraded. I went into the 101st instead eventually.
So how did you like Campbell in the area around?
I loved Fort Campbell, and Nashville's an awesome city. It's like 40-minute drive from Campbell, so it was definitely a great time.
Okay. So Afghanistan, you have one or two deployments?
One to Afghanistan and then one to Africa.
Okay.
Not then. Africa first and then Afghanistan.
How was Africa then?
It was neat. I was on a PSD for the most part, so I wore cargo khakis, hiking boots, and a polo shirt with a concealed 9mm. And then we had our M4s and gun bags. It was pretty cool. And we got a lot of per diem while we were there.
How was the mission there? What was your guys'
It was while they were standing up AFRICOM. Okay. It was before they actually started AFRICOM. They actually started it a couple months after we went home. Okay. So the mission there was, we were escorting around bunch of different people, civil affairs guys, higher ups that needed to meet with local authorities and stuff like that.
Did you have a lot of interaction with the locals while you were there? Or?
Yeah, tons. I mean, we had a bunch that were contracted to work for us, which, anyone who's ever been overseas, that's kind of the thing. Yeah. But there it was even more so. There was only about 20 of us on the little COP that we had built inside of a Kenyan naval base. And we had a bunch of workers, like almost the same amount of workers as troops there. So we got to know a lot of them real well.
Yeah. Was that the battalion PSD, or were you with division command?
It wasn't either. This was before I was in the 101st. This was actually when I was in the old guard. When I went needs of the Army, high GT, tall guy. So ended up working in Arlington for a little while. and they deployed us. It was like the first deployment in ages for them, and we ended up going over there. But it was more like we were assigned to like Military District Washington to go over there. Like it wasn't like we didn't even have enough guys to. It was a regiment stateside, so it wouldn't have been like battalion or.
They're out of Meyer, right?
Yep, Fort Meyer.
So Arlington, like, were you wandering around? What was
my job at Arlington? I was a casket bearer. I ended up by the time I left, I was a casket team leader there, carrying caskets and conducting funerals.
So how did that have any sort of impact on you career-wise?
I'm sure it helped set me up for good things. I mean, the amount of discipline required there is pretty intense, and I mean, like, you're doing one of the most honorable things you can in the United States military, like, bar none, you know? So we took it very seriously, and I think a huge part of that rubbed off on me, and for the rest of my time in, you know, just making sure I did the right thing all the time and getting stuff done when I needed to, you know?
Fair enough. So the transition from DC to Kentucky, how was it for you? Relatively easy, or did you have any issues when you got there?
The transition was, like, location-wise was super easy. Like, I really enjoyed it. I was sick of DC. Yeah. But, like, the traffic alone was terrible. But my time there to start was a little... it was a little contentious just because I was moving from a unit that was, you know... We were an infantry unit, but we trained once a month, and then the rest of the time we were doing ceremonial stuff. So there was a bit of a learning curve when I first got there, but I made sure to latch on to the right people and get everything I needed, and I pick up stuff pretty quickly, so it went well after the first couple months.
So coming up on deployment, did you do JRTC or NTC?
I missed out on both. I got there in October, and we deployed in February, so... they were already done with everything by the time I had him processed to Fort Campbell. So
do you feel like the unit prepared you, even though you missed the big chunk of the training?
Yeah, I mean, my initial job when I first got there, they assigned me to. I ended up being the Battalion Force Pro NCOIC. Okay. Like right when I got to Campbell, they assigned me to that. So my job pre-deployment was training up a lot of. Support troops on, you know, security measures and how to properly search someone coming into the fobs and stuff like that, and helping them with their just basic shooting skills and stuff like BRM and whatnot. So it was a pretty easy, like the tasks for me there were easy, but I feel like I was pretty well prepared. I mean, the job I ended up assigned to was something that like anyone who's been in for even a year or two should be able to cover if they're an infantryman, you know.
And what unit was it at Campbell that you were in?
I was in the Reconnaissance 3rd Brigade.
Okay. So I'm assuming you guys went through Kuwait on the way there.
No, we flew through Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
Kuwait. This was it was 2010, and there was some volcanic eruption somewhere.
Oh, the Iceland one?
Yeah, and so we couldn't fly over certain areas, so we ended up going to Kyrgyzstan and then over to Afghanistan.
Yeah. How was your first month as you're kind of doing your left seat, right seats? How did everything go when you first got there?
Oh, it went pretty well. I was on the Advon team that went over just so I could get the Force Pro transition taken care of well, and the left seat, right seat thing didn't really happen very well. My counterpart from the unit we were replacing, I met up with him for like a day, went through his routine for the day, and then that was pretty much it. His unit basically pulled him and was like, all right, you're good. So it was, I kind of got thrust into it pretty quickly, but like I said, it's basic stuff like, ECP security and whatnot. It was just pretty standard stuff. I did have to redesign the entire ECP for the fob we were on because they had it pretty much in a straight line coming in, which was just garbage. So we ended up making it an S-curve and then adding in automatic barriers and whatnot. So it ended up a lot better pretty quickly.
And where were you at in Afghanistan?
This was East Paktika province. It was in Oregon.
Okay.
We were at Fob Oregony.
So tell me about the deployment itself. What was like a typical day? How did everything work out for the unit?
I mean, to start out with, we were like where we were at Oregon wasn't very. We had a lot of each company or even platoons sometimes were broken up into different cops around the area and fobs around the area, and like they were running missions back and forth from Orkney, and you know, so there was a lot of interaction with them there. Every time I got a chance to jump out on a mission, I did, because I was sick of sitting on the fob pretty quickly. And that was pretty much for about the first half of the deployment. Like, you know, I'd be on the fob making sure the guys I had scheduled to be places were at them, and that was pretty much it to start with. I'd jump on any convoy that I could get on for at least a day as soon as I had a chance, and then when I went on mid-tour leave, when I came back, right before I left, I used my sergeant major's open door policy, and I was like, look, this isn't helping my development as an NCO right now. I really need to get to a line unit and, you know, at least take over as a team leader somewhere so I can get that experience, you know. So he set up so that as soon as I came back from mid-tour, I linked up with a line company and actually got to be a part of going out on missions, like, legitimately. So yeah.
Did you intend on making a career of it, or was this a short term, see what happens?
That was my intentions. After my initial enlistment, I did re-enlist, and I did plan on being in lifer, you know, but you know, other things happened. Fate had other plans. I got injured a little bit and ended up not being able to remain in the infantry. And once that was taken off the table, there was no way I was going to reclass. That wasn't what I foresaw when I joined. I wanted to be an infantryman, you know. So as soon as that all came up, I basically was like, all right, I'm just going to finish out this tour and then go home, you know.
And when you came home from mid-tour from that deployment, were you married at the time? Or?
Yes, I was married when I returned from the deployment overall, and for about another couple years after that. Ended up separating early 2012, about a year after I got back from Afghanistan. So.
Okay, and you remarried now, or?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Taking my time with that.
Nah, I don't blame you. So how, for mid-tour at least, how was everything with that, relationship-wise, family-wise?
Mid-tour was great. Had a great time. You know, just got home, got to spend time with a ton of different people that I hadn't seen in a while. I mean, even when I was stateside, I didn't make up to Massachusetts all that often, so it was really great. Yeah, I got to see all my siblings and my son and my wife at the time, and, you know, all her family, my family. It was a good time.
So during leave, did you kind of feel a little bit of anxiety, you know, when you had to go back?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I tried to ignore it for the most part, and then just pretty much the night before I was heading back, I didn't sleep. Like, my ex-wife and I, we got a hotel room, and she passed out, you know, at like 10, 11 at night, and I was just up all night. I ended up going for a walk for a while, and ended up actually running into my former brother-in-law at there's like a Chili's like half a mile from the hotel, and I walked in there, and he came in with a bunch of his friends. Like, I walked in, I was just gonna have a beer and like just hang out for a little while, watch some TV or something, but he came in, so I ended up chatting with him for a bit. But yeah, just stayed up the whole night before, just thinking about stuff, you know.
Yeah. While you were deployed, how was communications with back home? Did you have regular opportunities, internet?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Initially, like, I was at, you know, battalion level FOB, so it was pretty good to start with. The second half of the deployment, it ended up getting a little more spotty. We actually had we went from East Paktika, you know, RC East, down to RC South. It's the longest GAC in the history of the war in Afghanistan. We drove from FOB Salerno down to Kandahar Airfield, and then you know, stopped there for a few days, got a little more training, and then pushed up from there to FOB Ramrod, actually. Great name. And we were part of the crew that had the Horn of Panjwai hadn't been occupied since like a year into the Afghan war. because people there just got like slaughtered, and we were the guys that ended up taking it back over. So they literally, like, we had my battalion drove from RC East to RC South, and then went into the Horn of Pandway and spent about 60 days outside the wire straight on the Horn of Pandway, just occupying these like towns basically. It was pretty cool, but so we didn't have a lot of communication while we were out there, but for the most part it was good. Like while we were on the larger fobs, it was pretty easy to get a hold of people, but otherwise, I mean, you know, obviously outside the wire you don't ever, but we had like 2 months straight where we were out of contact with everyone. So
so as far as your unit's mission in Afghanistan, how keyed into it were you? Were you aware of like at battalion and brigade level what was going on, or was it more of just a focus at platoon level?
When I was at Oregon, when I was at the battalion level, I was pretty well tuned into everything. But I mean, once I split out, it was platoons. You know, like while I was there, I knew what was going on. I knew about missions before a lot of people did. You know, just because I was part of like the briefings every day that, you know, put out a lot of that info. But once I moved out, it was pretty much down to the platoon level, and like we were given broad mission parameters, and it was up to us to figure out how exactly we were going to do them a lot of the time. So we were a major part of it that way. But as far as like the overall picture of everything, we weren't really hugely cued in once I was split off onto a line unit.
Now Afghanistan, like we've had a lot of issues with like the Afghani police turning, being infiltrated. Did you see any of that?
No.
How's your working relationship with the
we
Afghans?
worked with the ANA a lot. Like when we actually went down to RC South, one of the things we did while we were at CAF was train up a bunch of them, and they ended up coming out with us when we took over Panjway. But the biggest issue we had with them was a lot of them are just idiots. Like they were not well trained, they were not disciplined, and there was a lot of times where we had to worry more about them shooting you than and accidentally, like friendly fire, not them turning. But for instance, there was one point where guys in my platoon, there was like an attack real quick. It was just like a lone shooter, maybe two. They never ended up seeing the guys, but so they were on high alert later that night, and we would run patrols out at night through the through the grape fields and stuff, and we had a couple just like taking shots at us for a minute before they realized that we were the good guys. And it was like, usually the Taliban doesn't have the type of gear we're wearing, guys, come on, you know. But that's just how undisciplined they were. They even got radio contact prior to us, like to my guys moving out, saying, hey, we're on our way, you know, shift fire. Nope.
So why do you think they were so undisciplined?
I mean, their military is like fledgling still, you know what I mean? Like they're babies. They haven't had a chance to instill the type of discipline that, you know, our military has over the last couple hundred years, you know. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, they're kind of screw ups in a lot of ways, but they also haven't had a chance to build up the tradition of excellence that we have. So, but I do think that's probably a huge part of it.
Makes sense. Now, as far as with the civilian populace, how much interaction do you have on a regular basis? What was your take on them? How do you interact with them?
I mean, we had a lot of LNs working on the FOBs with us, so I mean, I had a little interaction with them. And then when we were on Panjway, a lot of it was deserted, but they rolled out once we were coming in. They were pretty much gone, but there was a few like little enclaves of people where they were still around, and the ones we did interact with were awesome. I mean, like there was one like a local leader that he invited. Like my squad was doing a patrol, and later in the day he invited us all to come in and have lunch with him and his guys. You know, like this big thing of rice with all kinds of fixings in it, and it was pretty cool. Like, you know, just sitting there chatting with them through our terps, and just like they're good people for the most part. Just society has not developed that far.
Fair enough. So why do you think the Taliban's been able to resurge there over and over again?
I think a lot of it is just the like a lot of the people are disenfranchised. You know, like just their government has been traditionally super corrupt when there is a government, and it's either they have these corrupt assholes running things and just screwing everyone over, or they have, you know, the Taliban coming in. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Taliban sympathizer, but they actually ran that country better than when there was solid government in place. Well, you can't really call it solid, but like a traditional type of government in place, just because they actually had the means and resources to keep stuff the way they wanted it. And while I don't agree with the way they actually were running things, it was done in a like better manner than what the government that they have built up has been able to do. So
Fair enough. So to your eyes, like, what do you think we did right in Afghanistan, and what do you think we did wrong, if anything?
I think a lot of the aid we've given them, like while over there, like, you know, digging wells, building schools, stuff like that, that's been good. Giving them jobs, giving them, you know, trying to kickstart an economy for them, that's been done well. I don't think, like I said, their government, like the government that we helped put in place, no, it's just crap. Yeah, I don't really know that there was a real good way to go about it though, because I don't think they're really ready for like a fully democratic government there. So I think I don't really know. I don't know what could have been done really to stabilize that place. It's not a very, like, it's not a place that really lends itself to being stabilized that well. Like, there would have to be like years and years and years more of work done there before I feel like it could be a real stable place.
So kind of transitioning, when you came back, did you notice anything sort of, I guess, different about yourself?
Oh yeah.
Elaborating, or?
I know it's hard to tell now, but I was just super angry about a lot of things for a lot of time, and never used to really be a drinker, but that started up pretty hard when I got back, and used to be a real patient dude, and that's gone. Like, I have no patience for stupid anymore. Like, used to be real nurturing and bring people along, get them up to speed, and now I'm just like, I hate you. So working on it though, you know, trying to better myself a little bit, but yeah.
What was like your family's feedback?
They all think I'm way different since, and I mean, I have to agree with them because I can recognize it. So yeah, I'm divorced now, so obviously something went different.
Fair enough. Do you feel like there's anything that they could have done differently while you were in that may have made that a little bit different, or?
I think towards the end of my time in, they were working towards it. They were moving more towards it. Just checking into the mental welfare of everyone coming home, or anyone even still stateside. Mm-hmm. Like, they've been making great strides towards it. I mean, I've been out for a few years now, so I don't know for sure what it's been like since I've been out, but I noticed towards the end of my time in that they were making great strides towards just checking into the mental welfare of everybody, and, you know, making sure that the transition back was going better than, you know, say the Vietnam War, when people were coming back without any help that way. So I know they've been doing great things towards that. At the same time, though, I mean, I feel like some of that has been a little too much, like in some areas, like hand-holding and stuff with dudes that have no right to be. Like, I mean, you can't judge people based on their, you know, mental issues or emotional issues, but there are guys that, you know, have no real reason to be, like, yeah, emotionally and mentally shattered when they get back, or, you know, someone like trips and falls on, like, at JRTC, and it's just like, I have the PTSD now, you know.
Yeah.
Like, there's way too much of that, and I feel like there's a lot of hand-holding there. But obviously that whole number that, you know, you see a lot, 22 a day.
Yeah.
clearly there is something wrong and something broken that needs to be addressed, and I feel like they are making great strides towards it, but definitely could be more and needs to be more. And I know one of the organizations I belong to, the IAVA, they're working on new legislation that'll help take care of veterans coming home like with mental issues or emotional issues a lot more than the current policies that are in place. So hopefully that gets better.
Fair enough. Now, as far as your kind of transition into school, how did that go for you?
It's a work in progress. Definitely not used to it, not used to doing it. Been out of high school for 13 years, you know, and so 14 years when I came to Salem State. And that first semester was definitely a little rough for me. This semester has been a little better, but rough for other reasons. I just had a baby, so
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. I'm still clearly I'm still pregnant, but no. Yeah, I have a 6-week-old now, which, you know, right in the middle of the semester, so that's caused a little bit of backlog in work and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm getting there. I know it's been definitely, there's a lot of great programs and, you know, professors in place here that are doing great things, helping us transition, and there's been a lot of really good help basically available to me to get what I need done. So but yeah, that first semester was pretty bad. So yeah, I'm still working on catching up with everything, and hopefully as I move forward I can get everything done on time and to the best of my abilities. But yeah, it's much like the programs for in the military for mental health, that too is a work in progress. So
Fair enough. You had mentioned how you'd been injured, so I'm assuming you deal with the VA.
yeah,
How's that experience been?
honestly I feel like I'm just like blessed or something. I've had such good experiences with the VA, and I feel awful talking to people about it because like my brother, for instance, he's had a hell of a time with them, and I got my paperwork processed. Like I turned it all in at Fort Campbell before I even got out, like 2.5 months before my ETS, and they just start processing it the day I ETS. But yeah, I turned it in and it got processed. It took about 14 months to get fully processed, but I got 100% right off the bat, and so that's been going great.
Yeah.
And I haven't really had issues with like my GI Bill, with that. Everything's gone pretty well, and I go to the VA hospital in Bedford, and they've been awesome. Like I have a great time, like not a great time when I'm over there, but like a great experience every time I've gone. They take really good care of me, and definitely have no real complaints about it. And I know that sucks for everyone else pretty much, that like it's been so easy for me, but you know, take what you can get. And so yeah, I've had a great experience with the VA pretty much.
Fair enough. So the Army, DoD in general, they've been making a lot of changes lately. You kind of been keeping up with some of that?
A little bit, yeah.
So like for example, women in combat arms, what's your take?
My take on that. So basically, it's my belief that anyone can do that job as long as they're physically qualified for it, and mentally and emotionally. So if they can handle it, then more power to them. I think there's a huge risk, though, of lowering the standards to enable people to be able to do it. So for instance, in the Army, there's always been different standards to pass the physical fitness test. And, you know, people want women in combat arms for equality's sake and everything. And my big contention with that, and, you know, I welcome them to it. You know, I've served with people from all walks. I would not, if I was still in, I would not mind serving with women in combat roles as long as they were up to the same standards that the males had. So the biggest risk there obviously is, like I said, lowering those standards. And I feel like anyone arguing for equality's sake to have women in combat roles, there needs to be a couple of things done first to be able to make that legit. If you feel like women need full equality in the military, then they need to be a part of the selective service registration, just like males are. I know when I turned 18, I had to register with the selective service. I think women need to be a part of that, because if there is another draft eventually, then if they want to be in combat roles as well, then that's what the draft is for, to build up the combat roles. So I feel like that should happen. And like, just standards need to be equal across the board and not lower than they were before. I feel like they need to be the same, if not more stringent than they were, because I noticed a lot of stuff slacking off before I even got out, when this wasn't even an issue. So I think the standards need to be the exact same, and I feel like they need to be kept stringent. And the biggest thing you need to do for a combat role is to weed out the people that aren't physically or mentally able to do it. And so as long as the standards are the same, and as long as that selective service registration happens, then I'm all for it. If not, then it still wouldn't be equality. So if you say you're fighting for equality, then you need to be accountable for the same things that men are accountable for in those roles. And that's really the only way to make it truly equal.
So kind of going back a little bit, because you had mentioned how you got back, you used alcohol a lot to deal with it.
Oh yeah.
Big thing you saw with a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Why do you think it was?
It's a good form of escapism, and it's a legal form of escapism when you're still in the military, So anyone that's responsible enough to not, piss hot on a urinalysis, that's pretty much what you turn to. Although some guys just end up going the entire other way and running 20 miles a day and lifting weights all day, but that just wasn't me. No. Yeah. So it happens a lot. I mean, obviously, traditionally throughout the history, the military has been known as drinkers. It's like even back to the Vikings, the Viking Hall celebrations. You've got your mead and you've got your feast. So it's traditionally a thing that gets associated with the military, and it's pretty accurate.
No, I'm assuming that you kind of weaned off to a point.
Yeah.
Is there anything that drove you to that, or did you just kind of recognize it?
I knew it was getting to be an issue, and I've got kids, and I want to make sure I'm there for them and not dead of cirrhosis or something, prior to them being adults. So
in your experience with the guys that you'd served with, you've been out, you stay in contact with a lot?
Yeah, I do. Actually, last month or 2 months ago now, I was best man in a friend of mine's wedding. I had to go down to El Paso because he's stationed down there still. He's still in. So I was in his wedding, and I'm actually driving to Pennsylvania to visit another buddy of mine from another unit for his birthday. It's a surprise though, so he has no idea. His wife hit me up and was like, you need to come out for his birthday. So yeah, I stay in touch with a lot of them. I mean, some of the best friendships I've made in my life are those guys. I know they would do more for me, and I would do more for them than 99% of the people I've come into contact in my life. Just it's like the complete opposite of most relationships these days. Relationships you make in the military it's almost more intense than family, just because of the crap you have to go through together. It's like forged metal, basically. You need that fire to forge a even stronger steel. Well, that's how those relationships in the military are. They're forged through trials, tribulations, and adversity, and so they're some of the best relationships I've had in my life.
Do you, with everything going on right now with Iraq, Syria, ISIL, what's your take? Do you think we should be involved? Do you think that it's a regional issue?
To be honest, it's probably a combination of the two. A lot of it is regional issues, but I do feel like there's a certain point where you got to draw the line. Like back to Germany and Hitler and all that stuff, like the appeasement and the just looking the other way. That happened for way too long. So I mean, depending on what goes on there, like can't remember the town, but the town just got retaken in Syria, and they found a mass grave with women and children all in it, and this was like a week and a half ago maybe. And so I mean, stuff like that needs to be prevented, and I feel like that's something that a nation with the power that we have needs to step in for. But as far as like infighting and one faction against another, if it's just regular old like fighting and war and not killing of innocents, then I feel like they need to just work their shit out. But if stuff like genocide and mass killings and stuff like that is going on, yeah, I'm totally okay with being the watchdog.
Fair enough. Do you think our role in the region is going to continue, or that it should continue, if that ends up being taken care of?
I really don't see a way out at this point. Like, honestly, I feel like our initial foray into the Middle East, this time around, not Desert Storm, but for the War on Terror, I feel like it did a lot of good, but at the same time it did a lot of destabilization, and I really don't see a way out of there and keeping the peace and keeping stuff from spilling over elsewhere with us pulling out. Like if we pulled out of there completely and didn't have a hand in anything over there, I just feel like everything would just fall apart way too quickly right now, just because of how destabilized the region is.
Fair enough. So if your children down the road decided they wanted to join,
slap the shit out of them.
Mind explaining why?
I mean, honestly, I will support whatever my kids want to do. I'd probably be a little upset, and I'd push them more towards like the Air Force, so they get some good skills out of it. Because pretty much I'm set up to be a cop or a security guard after what I did, So I'd definitely push them more towards something that would give them a lot more technical skill that's translatable to the real world afterwards. But I would definitely sit down with them and have a talk about what they're getting themselves into, and try and help them see the light. But yeah, no, I mean, I have nothing against the military, but I want, like every parent wants better for their children than what they got, So I would hope that my children are geniuses and have scholarships to top tier colleges instead.
Do you feel like the military prepared you enough for life outside of it? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really good at, once I set my mind to something, getting it done, because that was a lot of what we had to do. And so good at that, and good under pressure, which is huge. And yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the things you go through, like from basic training through being deployed, clearly they're not fully translatable to civilian life in the United States, but I feel like that, once again, that's like the trials and tribulations that set you up for things. So like if you can make it through that stuff, you can do, whatever. You can deal with the first world problems we have over here if you can make it through a deployment, Yeah. So yeah, I think it did an okay job of it. I mean, obviously, like we were talking about earlier with the mental and emotional health, like there is issues there. Like clearly, like I said before, the 22 a day thing, that's a big deal. Like, but me as an individual, yeah, I think I'm pretty good for civilian life, but totally all about helping out, helping push that growth in the mental health care for veterans, because that's a big thing.
Do you feel like college has helped you much in personal growth wise?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of that's like me making myself buckle down and finally start doing a good job here. But in a lot of ways, I mean, last semester I had a professor, Julie Patton, who she recognized a talent in me that I had never seen, like I had never noticed before, and no one had ever brought it up with me before for writing. And she actually helped, basically by some of her actions, get me published. So it's a huge personal growth thing there. And now I realize I have a lot more things that I can look into for stuff I can do. So there's writing, and I've been exploring other creative venues for me as well, like photography and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of personal growth in that area, but it has caused a couple of problems because now I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up. So like I've got like 4 different things pulling me in different directions now, so I really got to make a decision sometime. But luckily I'm still young and can make those decisions as I need to,
So what are you looking at career-wise?
Well, I mean, my major here is business administration. I'm planning on concentrating on marketing and entrepreneurship, and I definitely want to run my own business someday, but I feel like I should probably get a job in the corporate world for a little while, just so I get the inner workings of a business a little better, and then who knows from there. I'll probably get my master's before I do any of that too, but I'd like to write. Like I enjoy that, but I mean, it's not always going to pay the bills unless I become a best-selling author. So I'm going to work in the business world for a while, maybe start my own consulting company, and then go from there. Write on my free time.
So besides writing, is there anything else that you found sort of relaxing, enjoyable?
Cooking. Yep, just started cooking. And I'm really good at it, I guess.
Does everyone agree with you, or is that your own opinion?
No, everyone. Yeah, get rave reviews. I cooked a dinner the other day, lamb chops. First time ever trying them, and cooked them for 6 people, and they were all like freaked out about it. So that's right, ladies, I'm a catch. Anyways.
Do you like local food? Do you find yourself wanting any of it? Wanting to learn how to cook it, like Afghani dishes?
Not really.
So no, Iraq, that was a big thing with a lot of people with kebabs.
Right, yeah.
Waffles,
no, I mean, I love that type of food. I just like, I don't know. It's just not, I like the food. I just haven't thought about really cooking any of it. Maybe just the bread. That's about it. That flatbread's pretty bomb.
The flatbread is awesome.
Yeah, so, but other than that, not really. I mean, if I want good kebabs, I'll go get them from the food truck that's around the corner from my place. They do awesome kebabs. But yeah.
So anything in particular, any story-wise, any thoughts about your service that you want to talk about?
Not really. I mean, I'm definitely glad I did it. I know it's done some great things for me, both just maturity-wise and helping me out. Like, I mean, school's covered, which is a huge deal. And because I'm disabled, my children get free school now. So that's huge to me. Like that's something I didn't have. So like it was when I found that out, like I almost lost it. Like it's such a big deal to me. So one of the happiest moments of my life was finding that out. But seriously, like my parents couldn't help with school at all. So finding out that like my kids were covered was like one of the biggest moments of my life. Like I lost it for a little while. I wept openly. Whatever. Don't judge me. But yeah.
A little bit.
It's fine. Anyone that can't get emotional once in a while is not a human being. So, but yeah, no, just, yeah, I've been set up really well. So I'm just excited to see what I do with all of it someday.
No pressure?
No, I always, I have my VA check to fall back on if I end up homeless. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can't really think of much else at this point. I'm sure there is. I'm sure it'll come to me the moment we turn the camera off, but...
I think we're good.
All right.
All right.
All right, one final question.
Okay.
What do you think of Dr. Darian's class? Be completely honest.
Is the camera on?
This won't affect you as far as your final. Ooh.
No, I'm actually enjoying it. I like history and the fact that we're doing pretty much all of it's covering, you know, like not military history, but like history having to do with the military is a huge thing for me. It's keeping me interested, which is cool.
Have you learned anything else about yourself through history or about your service? Kind of put things in context, or no?
Not a lot. I mean, no. Mostly just, I don't know. I did learn that I really enjoy listening to the anecdotes that Robert McNamara comes up with. Like,
Yes, that's
that documentary is awesome.
Fog of War?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. I think we'll call that it. Thank you very much for coming.